All right, let's get into our last operation here. We're going to talk a little bit about sectioning and exploded views. Now, sectioning in the 3D part or assembly has always been something that we've done based on some planes or faces. Well, when you do a section, you have choices of making single or multiple planes effective. So by grabbing your section view tool, planar selections is the way we've always done this, you'd simply grab a plane on your assembly and orient that plane wherever necessary. You could then go ahead and add a second plane, different orientation, and either go ahead and orient that or now twist it with these orientation rings that we now have on this. So you can rotate this quite easily. You can also go ahead and select a third section in a different direction and you'll get the cumulative section of those three planes being on. Now, one of the difficulties with this is if I switch the directions on any planes, I'm effectively getting the opposite section. And it's not always the easiest thing to get the section that you want. So we've added a new input here called Zonal Sectioning. Zonal Sectioning would allow me to go ahead and take whichever zones are created based on what is a mutual trimming, essentially, of those three planes. So if I want to show a section that has this top corner, I pick on that box, and you see that that gets sectioned. If I want to add in this side, we can also select that, and now we're cutting all the way through. But with this, I can also go ahead and add in additional zones on the back side if I wanted to. So now we've got some zones on the front and zones on the back. Now this won't really work unless you have graphics only selection turned on. This is more or less a zero thickness geometry situation. So with what we've got here, if I accept it using graphics only section, we can actually see this very complex section view based on those three zones that I showed to have on. Now sectioning is one of the things I wanted to show, but the other is exploded views. With this assembly, I want to go ahead and take everything that we've got here, and we're just going to run a brand new exploded view. For the entire history of SolidWorks, and really most CAD systems, exploded views have always been linear transitions, translate apart from one direction to another. When we have these parts here that are in a star pattern around a circular body, we would have to go ahead and do the linear transitions on each of these one at a time, 5 separate operations. Well, now we've added a new feature called the Radial Explode. What that allows me to do is select components on screen, which this time I'm going to do by actually using a selection set I've already created. Here in an assembly, I want to pick 10 fasteners. I only want to pick them once and never want to have to control pick them again. So saving them as a selection set saves me a boatload of time the next time I want to pick those. Then we're going to go ahead and do a radial section. Here we need this option, explode direction. By grabbing a cylindrical face, we are exploding radial from the axis of that cylindrical face. And now by grabbing my explode line, you'll see that I'm actually exploding those all out in a star pattern off of that central axis. So using another selection set that I've got, let's do the same thing with these arms. Same thing here with our central axis, and let's just go ahead now and explode those out. Now there's also enhancements that have happened with linear explodes. When you have components that are mated in such a way that they are coplanar to each other, linear explodes now automatically group those components together when you're using autospace. So as I start to drag these components out, what you'll see is the washers and the nuts are all completely coplanar and exploding at the exact same distance to each other. Now one thing you might not have known about this tool is that we're in the middle of autospace here. We can change the spacing in the middle of this. We can also sort things, take them into a different orientation, maybe drag them in a different direction, put them opposite of each other, and simply reposition these to any little minutia distance changes that we might want to do. But it groups them nice. They're all in the same coplanar faces, and they wouldn't come out to 5 or in fact 10 different distances because they happen to be 10 separate components. The side benefit of any exploded view that we do, of course, is the fact that these explodes animate, and the animation happens with this type of a feature as well. It's a simple step, and that step is going to explode in the proper order within the assembly itself. So at this point, that concludes the things that I was wanting to show today for everybody. I want to go ahead and just take a look over at my GoToWebinar tool here and see what kind of questions we might have had. I know we had a bit of an audio issue there, back just a little bit. So let me make sure that that's all taken care of. Yep, looks like the audio is restored, so everybody was chiming in on that. I do appreciate that, guys. If anybody has any other questions that you'd like to go ahead and throw in that questions tool, I'll try to answer them now, or we'll just go ahead and send you an email after the fact. We'll go ahead and get this thing tidied up and finish the recording session, And from there, we'll go ahead and throw that up onto our website and hopefully have that up there within a couple of days. So with that said, well, let's see what we got here. Can you import the bill of materials into the assembly to an Excel file? Yep, it's exactly the same table. So the question that we got there from Jacob, it's the same bill of materials templates in an assembly that we use in the drawing, and by right-clicking on it, you can save it as an Excel file just as you can from a drawing. Side benefit also is if you define the bill of materials inside of a SolidWorks assembly, that assembly bill of materials can also be the driving assembly in Enterprise Data Management, aside from the way that Enterprise would calculate things. So a couple of nice things that you can do there as well. All right. I do appreciate your time once again. Everybody have a great afternoon. Enjoy the last few minutes of your lunch. And hopefully join us on January 9th for the Part 2 session of our What's New in SolidWorks 2015 webinar. Once again, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great afternoon.